Que pasa, cabrón? If you were to tell the younger version of me that I would have the physique that I do now, then I would have called you a liar. I was trying absolutely everything all the fitness gurus were telling me, and nothing seemed to work. I started to believe that it wasn't even possible for me to even get abs or muscles until I made a few of these changes, which I'll show you so you can finally get your dream physique just like I did. My name is Blake, everybody's favorite gringo, so go ahead and subscribe to the channel, follow me on Instagram, and check out my looks matching course, which includes a free bonus aesthetic body program linked in the description below. The first thing you need to do is actually commit to a bulk. I was the kind of guy that would just switch up like every couple days. So I'd be cutting one day and then I'd be bulking the next. I feel bad. I feel like I want to get big. So I start bulking up a little bit. And as soon as I saw a little bit of fat gain, then I'd immediately go, oh, no, I need to cut. I need abs. I need abs. And I would start cutting down. And that was the reason for a long time that I stayed skinny fat. And I never actually made any real progress in terms of building muscle or anything. I didn't even look like I worked out. But then, I hit a point where I actually bulked up and cut down and I actually made some gains. But then I lost it again. So I ended up falling off my self-improvement a little bit and falling out of a lot of good habits, including the gym. I wasn't going to the gym as much, and even when I was going, I wasn't training as hard. So I was still showing up, but I wasn't really doing too much, and I wasn't, doing enough to actually maintain a good physique. I started to really look like shit, and I started to feel really bad about it. So in the winter of 2023, I decided to go on a bulk, and I decided to get back to where I was. And this was a really hard decision for me to make because it was like I already had a shit physique. I didn't have abs. I didn't really look like I had any muscle. So it was like, now I have to get more fat and make my physique look worse in a sense in order to actually get what I wanted. And, it was a really tough decision to make, but I made that decision. And so when I bulked up throughout that winter and then cut back down just in time for summer 2024 and the rest of 2024, I actually had the physique I wanted. My physique looked better than it ever had been before. Not only did I revive my gains, but I actually pushed it to that next level and built more muscle and got leaner than I ever had before. So moral of the story is you're just gonna have to accept some fat gain. Obviously don't go overboard with it, but actually commit to the bulk and accept that you're gonna be a little bit fluffier and you're gonna gain a little bit fat while you're doing it. And when you cut down, just know that's how you're gonna actually see some real progress, and that's gonna get how you get the physique that you want. So we're talking about bulking though. You also need to optimize your training, and this means training really hard. I have some close friends of mine that told me that they thought when you were bulking that you didn't have to actually train as hard, but when you're bulking, that's the time that you need to be training harder than you ever have before. And you actually shouldn't even be training lighter until your body physically can't, even when you are cutting. You should be training as hard as possible, as much as you can. Obviously it's going to be different when you're bulking and cutting, especially when you get really down in terms of your cut, but for the most part you're still going to be training as hard as you can. This means taking everything to failure, not where you're close to failure where you really start to feel it burn, but till you physically can't do another rep. But if your goal is aesthetics, you also need to be making sure that your program includes the right things, because most programs actually don't focus on the right things for aesthetics. A lot of programs are just going to be kind of powerlifter focus and stuff like that, having you do lifts that are just get you strong, get you maybe a little bit of muscle, but that it's not going to get you the aesthetic physique that you want. So you need to be training the aesthetic muscle groups, and this includes your shoulders, your lats, your chest, your abs, your neck, your arms, all those different things, your traps. I don't know if I already said that, but those kind of things and just the kind of muscle groups that are going to create the golden ratio. And what the golden ratio basically is when your shoulder to waist ratio kind of goes in like this, kind of like a upside down triangle, right? It's called a V taper. And to get that, like I said, you need to be training those muscles, because those muscles are what kind of creates that look. The average person kind of has this kind of build, or even worse, this kind of build if they're really fat. But you need to be getting it like this, and you're only going to be able to do that by focusing on and enhancing that, by focusing on training the aesthetic muscle groups. And this doesn't mean to skip anything like legs or anything like that, or you need to still be hitting your whole body, but you really want to emphasize in your programming that making sure you're hitting these really good and hitting all those different muscle groups really good, so you actually grow where you need to. And everybody talks about oh, you need to get good sleep, you need to get 8 hours of sleep in order to build muscle or whatever, you need to optimize recovery, but nobody actually tells you that you need to improve your sleep quality. Now, again, we've all heard this before, oh, you need to be getting 8 hours sleep, you need to be getting good sleep in order to actually build muscle. But how do you actually get good quality sleep when you're in bed for 8 hours? How do you actually make sure your sleep is good? First thing you need to do is make sure you're in bed 1 to 2 hours before you actually need to be asleep. So say you need to be in bed 8 hours, you need to be up at 7, so you think you need to go to bed at 11, but that's not true. That would be, 8 hours of sleep, but it actually takes your body 1 to 2 hours to actually fall into what is considered like deep sleep or good quality sleep. So you need to be going to bed 1 to 2 hours beforehand. So again, using that example, if we have to be up at 7, then instead of 11, we need to be in bed by 9 or 10. That would be the optimal range in order to like ensure that you're getting 8 hours of quality sleep. Another problem that we have in this modern day is that we all tend to be on our smartphones and stuff right before bed, in our bed, just like holding it up so close to our face, wondering like why we're getting such shitty sleep, but we have this blue light right bright in our face right before we're supposed to be going to bed, and it's just disrupting your sleep. You might not even realize it, but it's just causing you to have worse sleep quality. You're not able to fall asleep as fast. You're not able to fall into as deep of a sleep. It's just absolutely tanking your sleep quality. Now, we're all victim to this sometimes. I'm no exception. Sometimes you can catch me scrolling on my Duolingo or just scrolling, in general on my phone right before bed, and it's a bad habit. But one way you can make it a little bit better is by turning on the night shift mode on your phone and turning down the brightness. If you do those two things, it'll eliminate some of the blue light and it'll not be so much strain on your eyes. But ideally, you don't want to be doing this at all. Ideally, you just want to be using your bed for sleep. Do it somewhere else other than your bed. You need to make sure that your bed is strictly just only for sleep. And, if you have a girlfriend, we'll call it some extreme cuddling with your girlfriend. But just be using your bed for those two things only. Don't be using your phone in your bed if you can. Just make it a habit of using your phone somewhere else before you go to sleep, because basically you're training your brain that that's what you use your bed for. So if you use it for anything other than sleep or extreme cuddling with your girlfriend, then your brain's just going to automatically like be ready to do those things when you hop into bed. So when you hop into bed, it's automatically going to be prone, and you're just start getting the urge to go on your phone and start scrolling a little bit. So make sure that you're only using your bed for, again, sleep and extreme cuddling with your girlfriend. One thing that exponentially accelerated my gains was actually doing some cardio. And I'm the kind of guy that I used to not like running. I used to not like doing stuff like that. And it was just absolutely a chore for me to do. So I never did it. But I started doing some light cardio by going on more walks and everything like that, going on more hikes. That was something I could do, and that was something I had fun doing, and it became like a thing with me and my friends. We go on hikes and talk about life and stuff like that. It was really fun. And I would start walking after every meal because that was really good for your blood pressure, digestion, and I was getting some steps in. And what I found out was doing even light cardio like that just helped me absolutely melt some fat away and help my body's insulin sensitivity and everything, and just wasn't holding as much fat when I was doing more cardio. Because to lose weight and everything, to lose fat, you just need to be in a caloric deficit. But I found that I lost more fat when I was getting my caloric deficit from cardio than just by cutting out food and losing out on micronutrients. So you need to be making sure you're doing it from cardio. And in terms of walking, I'd aim to get about like 10,000 steps in per day. And especially walking after each meal is just going to be phenomenal for you. You can go on more hikes and stuff like that again, but walking after each meal is just going to be phenomenal for your overall health. I also started making even more gains when I started including at least 1 to 2 intense cardio sessions per week. And this can be through a bunch of things. It doesn't have to be running, because again, I hated running. So for me, I had to find a bunch of new hobbies and a bunch of stuff that, I actually enjoyed doing to get this cardio in. So I would go, play basketball with my friends. And then, I eventually discovered, something that I love to do today, and a sport I love to do today, which is MMA, kickboxing, and jiu-jitsu. I've actually competed in that now. I never knew how to do any of that stuff, but because I was looking for something to stay in shape and some good cardio to do while learning how to defend myself, I ended up finding a sport that I absolutely love and now compete in. You need to be looking out for new hobbies so you can start including 1 to 2 intense cardio sessions per week and focus on getting around 10,000 steps in, or as close as you can to 10,000 steps per day, and you'll just start melting fat away. You'll start like looking 10 times better, I promise you, if you just focus on doing some good quality cardio. Last thing I want to go over real quick, because people ask all the time, is what supplements should you take? And to keep this simple, you actually don't need to take any of them. You don't need anything. They're called supplements. They're not called necessities. Now, with that being said, they can be a good tool for you to use depending on which ones you're taking and everything, and depending on what your goals are and everything like that, and how your lifestyle is set up. So yeah, sometimes supplements can be a good tool. Like if you're not getting enough protein in, maybe a good protein powder, or like if you're struggling to gain weight, maybe a weight gainer or something like that. But for the most part, like, you actually don't really need them. You know, right now, the only supplements I take are creatine and some vitamins. You know, other than that, you don't really you don't need anything. You don't even need to take that. You know, if I were to recommend any supplement to you, it would definitely be, you know, probably creatine, because creatine is the most researched supplement on the market. And, you know, it doesn't have any acute effects, but if you take it for long enough over time, you're going to start to notice that you gain more muscle, you look a lot leaner than if you weren't taking it. And, you know, that's exactly what it does. Again, it's the most researched supplement on the market. But I cannot stress this enough. You do not need to have any supplements. If you want to, great. Like if it's good for your lifestyle and everything, great. But it's not a necessity. And don't fall for a lot of the trends, because a lot of supplements will start to trend and stuff. And I fell for that. I was victim to that for a long time. You know, I was taking a bunch of pre-workouts and stuff, and if anybody tries to sell you like testosterone or anything, don't listen to them at all, because, you know, some of that stuff, like it becomes a trend and everything, and people fall for the kind of, you know, placebo effect of it's so popular, so they start to think it works. But most of that stuff just does not work. And don't listen to anybody tells you that you need to be taking anything, because you don't need any supplements. You just need natural, whole food, nutrient dense diet, and you'll be good. You can supplement on top, because again, it can be a good tool, but it's not a necessity. Now, if you want to run the exact same program as me that got me the physique that I have now, then you can check the link in the description for my looks maxing course. It goes way more in depth into everything that we talked about. It also goes more in depth in just looks maxing in general, so you can become the most attractive version of yourself possible. And I include some bonus dating modules, so you can learn how to get good with women and everything like that, as well as a bonus social media module, so you can use that to leverage your kind of status and everything. And it also includes, again, the free bonus aesthetic body program, which is the exact program I ran to get the physique I have now. So again, it would be a phenomenal tool for you to use as well. So you can check that out, linked in the description below. With that being said, remember, be better than you were yesterday.